From the dawn of time, humanity has sought to measure the intangible, time. We observed the stars, the sun, the moon, but it was with the mechanical clock that we finally captured its essence. It was after the invention of the mechanical clock that the concept of clock time emerged, which came to reshape the daily life of modern inhabitants. The clock became the central pivot of modern life's organization. Clock time structured the flows of social life. It is unimaginable for a modern-day individual to ignore the clock's time. Our entire lives depend on the hands of clocks. But this story has a prehistory. Today, we'll explore how this amazing invention transformed our relationship with time and marked the beginning of the modern era. Before mechanical clocks, measuring time relied on nature. Sundials, like those used by the Egyptians, cast shadows to mark the hours of the day. Water clocks, or clepsydras, measured time through a steady flow of water. Ingenious as they were, these methods were inaccurate and dependent on external conditions. In the medieval world, a new need drove a change: religious life. Monks, required to pray at strict intervals, needed something more precise. Thus, the idea of the mechanical clock was born. The mechanical clock emerged in Europe during the 13th century. These early clocks had no hands or faces. How did they work? They used bells to audibly mark time. These bells were more than a signal, they were a reminder of the divine rhythm governing life. A crucial breakthrough was the escapement mechanism, an invention that regulated the movement of gears. This allowed time to be measured with unprecedented precision. As mechanical clocks became more sophisticated, they evolved into symbols of prestige. Cities competed to build towers with the largest and most advanced clocks, such as the famous astronomical clock in Prague, which not only displayed the hours but also the phases of the moon and the movements of planets. These clocks were not merely tools, they were demonstrations of political and technological power. Controlling time meant controlling life. In the 15th century, clocks began to change in scale. Peter Henlein, in Nuremberg, created one of the first portable clocks, the Nuremberg egg. Though less precise than large tower clocks, these personal devices were a luxury reserved for the elite. During the 17th century, the minute hand was introduced, significantly improving the clock's utility. Pocket watches were attached to chains and required keys to be wound. These chains not only prevented the loss of the watch but also became fashionable accessories. In 1675, Christiaan Huygens introduced the balance spring, greatly enhancing the clock's accuracy. This advance solidified the transition of watches from decorative objects to functional instruments. During the Industrial Revolution, pocket watches began to be mass-produced, especially in the United States and Switzerland. Companies like Waltham and Elgin in the US, and Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin in Switzerland, played key roles. Pocket watches ceased to be exclusive to the aristocracy and became common tools for businesspeople, railway workers, and soldiers. In the 19th century, pocket watches played a crucial role in the railway system. Companies required precise watches to prevent accidents and ensure punctuality. Over time, these watches evolved into pocket watches, symbols of status for nobles and merchants. Later, in the 20th century, the wristwatch became a practical necessity, especially during World War I. Watches played a fundamental role during World War I, transforming from simple personal accessories into key tools for military coordination and battlefield operations. Trench warfare and synchronized offensives required precise timing that watches could provide. Before the war, military operations relied on visual or auditory signals, like flags or bugles, which were impractical in the chaos of modern battlefields. With synchronized watches, troops could execute attacks simultaneously without direct communication. Before the war, pocket watches were the most common, especially among men, while wristwatches were considered feminine accessories. However, soldiers found wristwatches far more practical, as they could check the time without pausing to retrieve a pocket watch. This led to the widespread adoption of wristwatches after the war. In the trenches, attacks, artillery bombardments, and assaults were timed with extreme precision. Military leaders distributed orders with exact schedules to minimize disorganization. For example, an artillery bombardment had to cease at a specific moment to allow troops to advance without being struck by their own fire. The demand for more robust and reliable watches during the war drove innovations in the watchmaking industry. Watches used in the war began to include features such as illuminated dials for reading the time in the dark, water and dust-resistant designs to survive harsh conditions, stronger straps and compact designs for greater comfort and functionality. The use of watches during the war also helped establish greater standardization of time. Before the war, many regions followed their own local time zones. The need to synchronize operations across vast fronts drove the adoption of standardized time among Allied forces. The Industrial Revolution enabled mass production of watches, making them accessible to ordinary citizens. But in the 20th century, a new rival emerged, the quartz watch. More accurate and affordable, this advancement relegated mechanical watches to a secondary role. However, mechanical watches did not disappear. Today, they are luxury items, valued for their craftsmanship and complexity. Brands like Rolex and Patek Philippe have turned these watches into symbols of status and art. The mechanical watch did not merely measure time, it redefined it. Thanks to its precision, work schedules were organized, travel was planned, and cities synchronized. Even maritime navigation depended on precise chronometers to calculate longitude at sea. In essence, the mechanical watch marked the beginning of a new era, where humanity stopped relying on nature's rhythms and took control of time, while time, in turn, began to control our lives. The mechanical watch is much more than an artifact, it symbolizes our ability to dominate the natural world. And it represents a reverse movement, how clock time has dominated our lives since it became widespread. From medieval towers to luxury wristwatches, its history reflects our obsession with measuring, organizing, and understanding time. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment, and subscribe for more fascinating videos like this one.